recording in an easy place to get to it. And yeah, so today we're going to talk about art reps and art galleries, which is something I talk about a lot, but everyone always wants to hear more about it because I guess I don't know, why are you guys so interested in art reps and art galleries? Um, Tell me in the comments because I personally get like zero sales from art galleries or art reps, and I know that's different for some other artists. I think the same story is more relevant for photographers because in general, art galleries don't really accept photographers that often. Um, and and that's just kind of a problem with the industry in regards to photography. So that's just something we deal with. But personally, like I'm represented at one gallery right now, which happened because of our Basel, and it's not really a standard gallery, and they haven't sold shit for me. I've been represented by two art reps in the past and have probably made like 20 grand from them in like the years that I've been on there. Um, Ron says it ended. I don't know what that means. Oh, it's still here. Okay. Deborah sticks with T. Can other people comment in here saying whether or not I'm still alive? You still see me. So Matos asked is if art galleries will enhance your reputation, and it depends on the art gallery. So it's nice to have it on your resume that you were represented here during this time, or represented there during that time. And that builds out your your CV or your curriculum vitae. But in terms of like enhancing your reputation, that only comes with like highly with galleries that have a high reputation. And for the most part, especially if we're selling art online or at art fairs, the art collectors don't know much about the galleries, right? Unless you write a little article on your website or you put a little note like represented by this prestigious gallery or whatnot, then you can um, then it might enhance your reputation a little bit online, but it's not going to do a whole lot, in my opinion. At least it hasn't for me. So recording. So Jessica says she's getting doubtful of gallery sales, capacity for sales, etc. Might be the gallery I choose. Yeah, so we're going to talk about that today as well. So I'm going to share my screen and let's dig into it a little bit. Share screen. Share the right screen, which is this one. Okay, thank you for going away. All right, so we're going to talk about working with art galleries and reps, and there'll be a link to the training here. So to get started, there is some adjacent learning that you guys can do that we've done in the group already. There is the Where Do I Start video series, which is if you are an Artpreneur member, that is the $25 a month membership. There is a whole 9 or 10 video series about the 9 silos of making money in art. So you can learn about, there's a whole training about art galleries and separately art reps and consults in there. So you can learn about a little bit more there. There's also the how to create an effective art portfolio, which is something we're going to talk about today. This is also in the the replay vault. So you want to check that out in conjunction with this training. There's also the pricing your art, which we're going to talk about a little bit today because it's really important when checking out galleries. And if you are an Artpreneur Essentials member, you can check out the pricing framework video. If you're a full member and you're watching this, you can check out the pricing your art with confidence video. Lastly, for adjacent training, there's also the writing artist statements and bios. If you are an Artpreneur Essentials member, that is in both its own module in the business of art, as well as a booster training in the replay vault. And then if you're a full membership, both of those trainings are in there and you can share your writing with us in our members group and get some direct feedback on that. Okay, so that's it for adjacent learning. You can find all that stuff. Here is the replay vault. So one of these trainings, writing compelling artist statements, And then another one is creating art portfolios right here. And then if you are curious about what the Artpreneur membership is, you can go to theartofselling.art, or you can just put a comment saying, hey, can you send me this link? And Ali will DM you the link to this training. It's really simple, guys. Like, this program has so much in it. It's $24 a month. Cancel anytime. So there's going to be a few tangents that I'm hopefully not going to go on, so we can stick to the half-hour chatting here. But you guys know me, I just start talking and then we keep going. Okay. If you have questions during this, please leave them in the comments, and I will come back and refresh this over. So Deborah says that she shares in her local gallery. She just contacted by a rep who wants to use my art for commercial products and take 15% of sales. All right, all right, Deborah, we got to talk about this, and I think we'll talk about it more in the members group. Because if he's licensing your work, so you have a rep who wants to license your work as a third party member. I mean, that becomes really convoluted. Because in general, licensing only pays you 10%, and then he wants to license it for you. So he's going to take 15% of your 10% or whatnot. I mean, it just depends. So we need to go into a little bit more about these licensing opportunities he's talking about. All right. Let me move this a little bit. So let's start with definitions. Okay, so what is an art rep? Right? An art rep is someone who sells art on the artist's behalf, right? This is important because it separates us from who the consultant is. They are paid on commission or retainer plus commission. They're always going to be paid on commission, which means they're going to take a portion of your sales and put them toward, as their earnings. And the better ones, the ones who know that they're worth a lot of money, are going to charge you a monthly or quarterly retainer just to keep you on their business roster. And then they're also going to take commissions. So just be aware of what they expect when you start talking to them. Why get one? Because they will represent you to art buyers and they will promote you, hopefully, because they have a network of collectors and connections for opportunities in art. Maybe because you want them to manage your career, which means like they're going to manage your bookings, they're going to manage your shows, they might manage your finances. It depends on how big of an artist you are and what's at that point in your career when you start talking to one. And then they'll handle the sales and the negotiation of your art. So really all you got to do is create. Now, we'll talk about getting an art rep here in a second, so I'll try not to get ahead of myself. But these are the reasons why you'd want an art rep, for someone to do all of this stuff for you. Now, in Art is Selling Art, we talk about networking and connections and representing and promoting and selling and negotiating your sales and all of that stuff. So you can do it all on your own. It really just depends on the size of the inflow of demand, right? When you start getting more demand than you can handle, then you might want to get an art rep, right? If your work well, we'll get to that in a second. So what is an art consultant, right? That's the other side of this representation paradigm. An art consultant is someone who buys art on behalf of the client. And this is really important, right? This guy, the art rep or woman, expects to get paid by you when they sell your art. This person doesn't expect anything from you. They get paid from the client to get art for them. So typically, this person will just buy your work without any ask for commission, without any expectation of being paid by you. If they call themselves an art consultant and then they say, I'll sell your work to my client, but I want 15, 20, 30%, then they're charging you on both ends. And it's up to you whether you want to take that sale or not, but know that that person's already getting paid a hefty fee in order to find art for their client. And then they're charging you on the other end and they're double dipping, which is a little bit dirty in my opinion. Right, so here's some definitions of galleries, because we're also talking about galleries. We're not really going to talk about art consultants anymore, but I thought it was relevant to define the difference between an art representative, and an art consultant. Right, so galleries, there's commercial galleries, which is what most of you are asking about. These are the galleries that are for profit. and they represent artists. So there's not a lot of difference between an art rep and an art gallery, except that the gallery has a brick and mortar spot. And sometimes art reps just work out of their office and they work based on their connections. Then there's nonprofit galleries, right? So if commercial galleries are mainly to sell art, nonprofit galleries, their primary focus is on education, cultural enrichment. So you can get into a nonprofit gallery, but their focus is not going to be to sell your art. Their focus is going to be toward doing something for the community and educating people. Co-ops. I know a lot of you guys are in co-ops, guys and girls. Um, you can read this and this document will make it available for everyone. But generally, like they're run by groups of artists. Uh, a ideally, this is what the definition online was like. Ideally, this gives artists more control over the presentation of their work. But in reality, um, mostly it's just the blind leading the blind, and there's a bunch of artists splitting a commercial space, and nobody knows anything about marketing, nobody knows anything about curation. Everybody's in it for themselves while trying to split the cost with other artists, and it's a little bit of a mess. So uh, if you were going to start, or if you were going to participate in a if you need me, if you were going to participate in a co-op, like I would find out who the other members are and be like, do you guys know what the fuck you're doing? And if they don't, then it's up to you. Like, do you want to get in and maybe take the lead? But there's a lot of marketing and community work that goes into making a gallery successful, more than just showing up with a wall. Anyway, so the next gallery is the vanity gallery, and these are where you pay to exhibit your work, right? And this is what is mostly advertised to artists. People will write to you online on social media and be like, "Hey, we have a gallery, we have opportunity to be represented," and then at the end of it, they're like, "It's $500 a month or $5,000 for 9 feet of wall space." So the problem with these is that they don't represent the artists. They're just real estate people, right? And so they have a physical place and they're selling walls to pay their bills and to make a profit off the artist. Any sales that come after that are less. So one thing that you can do is, so you're going to pay a fee for the space, and then you typically are charged a smaller commission on sales. So instead of the normal 50-50 split, you get sometimes it's like 70-30 or something like that. Right. So it's not always, so this might be attractive to you, but then you got to remember you're paying for the space. And that's not really that cool. Vanity galleries and commercial galleries also both show up on at art fairs, at exhibitions, and they have a commercial gallery won't charge you for them bringing their presence to an art fair, but a vanity will. And it gets really expensive, and their presentations are normally. Obviously, I have a bit of a bone to pick with some vanity galleries, uh, but that's it. So I actually, before we get to online galleries, when I worked with an art rep who I'm thinking about bringing on just to talk about what he does, but we also did art fairs, and I did have to pay for the wall space at the art fairs. So in a way, it was a hybrid gallery slash vanity gallery for the art fair. But it was very transparent. Like I knew how much the gallery cost and I knew how much I was paying for my space, and that was it. So there's hybrid models between the rep, the gallery, and the vanity gallery that exist today because of the internet. The last type of gallery is the online gallery, and I don't want you to confuse this with an art marketplace like Fine Art America, um, Saatchi Art, or whatever. Those are art online marketplaces. There's online galleries which function the same way as commercial galleries. They have art reps, they have sales staff, they have curation, they have all that stuff. An example of one is Cohort. Uh, and Cohort, for example, has an app, and they have a curation process, a jury process. So they're very much like a, a digital evolution of the physical gallery space. Do you guys have any questions about these types of galleries before I get into working with those galleries? Let me refresh this page over here. Um, okay. Yeah, that's weird to pay $50 a month. It doesn't make any sense. Um, it's such a small amount. Like, what is that for? I don't know. All right. So getting into commercial galleries. Uh, Here we go. Step one, you need to curate your CV and your online presence. All right, what does that mean? This is your website. This is your about page. This is your maybe your LinkedIn if you're a full-time artist and you want to have that shown there. You want to curate your online presence so that once you do apply and they look you up, they can find something that shows that you're serious about your business. So having a website is like really, really important. And there's a whole website building tutorial inside the full membership. But really, what you need at least is a one-page thing about you, minimum. So if you don't have a website, you really need that. You also need this includes your social media, right? I read a statistic from a survey. I forgot where it was taking, but it was important. It was like by Sotheby's or something, and it said that 80% of the artists discovered by galleries was found on social media or through a personal reference. So your social media has to represent you as an artist, right? If you are in either membership, there's a whole social media album or a social media module about curating and creating good content and whatnot. Your social media needs to represent you and your art, so that when people discover you, they can find out if they want to work with you. Step two, create a portfolio, right? That's why in the adjacent learning, I listed how to do a portfolio. I clicked on the wrong thing, this adjacent learning. Um, Creating an effective art portfolio, because if you show up with just anything in your presentation to talk to the art rep or the art gallery, then it's not gonna be effective, or you're not gonna wow anyone. And I didn't include that in here, but we'll talk about the actual presentation in a second. So, okay, where was I? Curating commercial. Okay. So step two is create your portfolio. Step three is research your prospects, right? And this is where I think Jessica's question might be is like, when you look up galleries, there's three questions you want to ask. Like, does the gallery show art like you? Right? Does the gallery show artists like you? Right? So is the artwork like yours? So if you're a photographer and you go to a primarily canvas or acrylic art gallery, they're not going to show your work. They have a market and they have a niche, and that's what they do. So if you are if you are showing up to the wrong place with your stuff, wow, why is that so big? If you're showing up to the wrong place with your stuff, then you're not going to get in, and you're just going to get frustrated. All right. So that's really important. I don't know why that margin is so big. Um, Step two, do they show artists like you? So the artists that they have on their wall, are they mid-career artists? Are they early and emerging artists? Or are they established artists who have been around for 20 plus years and done multiple shows and stuff like that? If you're an emerging artist and you're trying to show up here, they're not going to accept you, right? So you're going to be wasting their time, and it's going to hurt your ego and your time. So you got to make sure that when you walk into the gallery, before you go in, especially if it's local, that if it's within like 4 or 5 hours and you want to be there, like go drive 4 hours to go see this gallery and see what kind of artists they do. The other reason you want to be there is for the question below, right? So question one, is it show art like yours? Does it show artists like you? Question two. Question three, is the art priced in your range? And this is where the pricing module comes in. But if you go there and your work is $500 to $2,000 and the artwork they show is $5,000 to $10,000, then you're not going to get in, right? You don't fit in their marketing plan or the gallery's business plan. So you have to be cognizant, right? So if you're showing up and these three fundamentals don't work for you, then uh, you're showing up in the wrong place. Okay. So for the gallery itself, like after you've checked out these things, does the gallery have a great location? So the gallery could have all, you could fit into these three criteria, and then the gallery is in the corner of the end of a downtown and it gets hardly any foot traffic. If there's no foot traffic, that means no sales. Okay. So if it's not in a great location, then you can't expect great results. Having a brick and mortar requires a good location in order to make those sales, right? It might be a high location area, like if it's in a tourist area, like a tourist city or a tourist town. That's really great. That's an awesome place for you to be uh, in. So even if it's in the dark alley in a tourist location, then it may still get enough traffic for people to come in and discover your work. Does the gallery have a great sales team? Right. So both of these things you can't discover unless you go. Or you can look at a map and Google Map around and maybe get this, but does the great have a sales team? When you go in there and you talk to them, does the sales team know personally about the art that's on the walls? Can you walk up to a piece and ask a question, and can that person answer that question? This is a big thing. Like, are they knowledgeable about the gallery? Because um, I've been in galleries where the person couldn't really speak intelligently or in depth about the art that's on the walls, right? So you only find this out by asking, right? Sometimes there's not a team. So this question may not apply. Sometimes it's just one person sitting behind a desk and you walk into the art gallery and they don't even look up, right? That's also going to be a red flag for me, right? And is the sales team tactful? Like, do they just sit behind the desk and not look up, or do they stand up and welcome you in? Do they talk to you? Do they give you any sort of direction about your experience in the art gallery? Like, these are all kind of the benchmarks of, does the gallery have a team that's going to serve you in sales, right? So second, or the third thing is, do they have a black book? And I don't remember where I came up with this term black book, but basically is, do they have a list, like a mailing list and a phone list of people to tell about you, right? When you join the show or when you join the gallery, are they going to write an email to their people, multiple emails? Are they going to pick up their phone to their best collectors and say, hey, we have a new piece of art for you to check out? Right? And the only way you're going to find this out is if you ask them. So if you're joining the gallery and you say, hey, what are you going to do to market my work? Because they're getting 50%, right? Like, this is super important to consider. How much are you willing to spend to sell your art? Right? If you join a gallery and they're taking 50%, then you're willing to spend 50% of the cost of your work in order to sell your work, right? So are you going to trust that that they're going to do 50% of work for you? And are they going to do that in a timely manner? If they're not, then you might as well take that 50% of the cost of your work and put it into Facebook ads or put it into marketing of some sort, right? Otherwise, you're giving away money, and worse, you're probably giving away a ton of time. All right, which has happened. All right, so that's kind of working with art gallery. So let's talk about like the actual application. So here's what we do. When you find a gallery that ticks all these boxes, you go to that gallery and you ask who to speak to. And sometimes it's going to be the gallery owner, but on a bigger gallery, on a bigger team, they're going to have a curator. And that curator is either going to be a junior curator or the actual curator of the gallery. And you're going to ask them for a meeting. Okay. So you're going to ask them, can I sit down and have like an appointment with you? And you can set this up over the phone if they're really far away. Say, hey, I checked out your gallery. I'd like to show you my work in person, if you guys have any openings. And they're going to say yes or no. And then they're going to make an appointment. And, if you're coming from far away, make sure they know that. Like, hey, I'm coming from Canada to see your San Francisco gallery. Right? I think this is my work, and you send them your online stuff. And if you have time, I would love to share my work with you while you're there. And then you show up with a physical representation of your work, not an iPad, all right? Unless you're doing digital art, you're going to show up with some physical representation of your work so that you can show it to them when you're having this conversation. And that physical representation of your work should be that portfolio that you curated because you've already watched the How to Create an Effective Art Portfolio tutorial. And you're going to have that conversation with them in person, but you're going to schedule it and you're going to have it and you're going to be prepared to show them a cohesive body of work that aligns with what they already have in their gallery so that they have an idea of how they're going to work with you. If you do really big art, then obviously you cannot travel across the country with a really big piece of art. So you might do a smaller sample, or do a print of the bigger piece and explain that this is just a smaller print of the physical actual work. But you're going to show up with something to show them in person, and maybe bring a digital representation like an iPad where they can see more of your work in person. But if all of those other tick boxes that we talked about are checked, then you should be able to have an intelligent discussion about what they do at that gallery, so that it's not just you showed up with no history and no knowledge about them, right? It should work both ways. You should know about the gallery, and the gallery should have some history on you to be able to ask you intelligent questions, right? But you're showing up with a portfolio, with a presentation, and with knowledge about the gallery. At an appointment, you're not going to show up on the first day of you checking out a gallery without prior announcement or research. I've seen this a lot where artists will just walk around with a book and be like, look at a few pieces of art until you've attracted some art reps or sales team attention, and they'd be like, oh yeah, this is nice. Here, look at my work. Look at what I do, right? And then you completely blindside this person. And not only is it not their job to do it with you, but now you're wasting their time that they could be spending with someone else, or not interacting with you at all because you're not really a collector or a customer. You're someone who's trying to sell them something, right? So that's the wrong way to do it. And you want to make sure that you come and approach in a professional manner so that you are already starting the relationship off on the right foot. If you do go in first and you check everything out, then you ask that person to set up a meeting for the future. So you talk to someone and they seem knowledgeable about the work or whatnot. Like, hey, like I'd really like to present my work in this gallery. Who can I set up a meeting for sharing my work in the future? All right. I hope that makes sense. I know that's another step between you and Toast, but if this is a long game, you should be willing to spend the time doing that. Right. So Jason, did you cover how to do your homework on discovering potential galleries that represent work like you? Well, okay, so you can start with Google, of course, and then go to the downtown and just walk around, right? It's easier if you start with Google though. So Doug says all of these are reasons I'm trying to become gallery independent. Yeah. Becoming gallery independent just means you have to do all the work of the gallery yourself. Right. Yeah, Ali we'll get you the document afterward. And Doug, this will be in our replay vault as well. Watch out for people who already get paid. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to art reps because I already know we're going over, but you guys are hanging out with me, so I think it's okay. And I need to go back to sharing my screen. The art rep part would be faster because we've already covered a lot of it. All right, so working with art reps. The application process. I'll add some notes to this before I release this document. All right, so getting onto art reps, getting onto art rep. Obviously, I copied this over and didn't write a complete sentence. Getting into with art reps. Okay. So the same process starts. Step one, curate your CV, online presence, blah, blah, blah. Like the same things we talked about before. Sorry, Doug, we're a little bit over. But step four is the important one. So we want to, oh, my bad. I was sharing the wrong one. Okay, let's do a new share, this one. I have so many windows open, guys. All right, so getting into, or getting, we'll call it onboarded with an art. Step one, you want to have the portfolio and online presence done. Right? It's the same with pretty much anything. Like I think that this is the foundation of who you are online, and it needs to be top notch as you can make it. Do research on the art reps once you find them. So you can Google, excuse me. So if we just do art reps in Seattle, local artists near you, local art for business, top best 10 art consultants in the area. There's one, bilineal art consulting, whatever. So you can start with Google to do a research. I'm a photographer, so let's do photographer art reps in Seattle. So you'll start with the Google search, and you can start with Google or you can start with LinkedIn. And once you find them, it's the next step is to start looking into them. And what you'll find is once you find the art rep, you first have to find out whether or not, just like the first one, whether or not they show artists like you, or whether or not they show art like yours. There's no point in showing work to an art rep who doesn't represent people like you. All right? Where'd that go? Okay. But once you look into them, the next step before you reach out to them is different than the art galleries. And you can do this with art galleries too, but normally you have to go in to see who's on their walls. But step four is call the artists who are on their roster. Right. So actually, like Tim Tatter, the first time I had an interaction with Tim Tatter was because I was looking for an art rep and they were representing him too. And that's also how I met Yuval. Anyway, two run-ins with that guy before we became friends. So basically, I saw an art rep and they had a bunch of artists in there, and I saw some artists who were like me. So I called them and I said, "Hey, so and so, what is it like to work with so this person or that person?" All right, and generally, they should. What the heck is going on here? Generally, they should be down to talk to you. Right? Any artist who's like not down to have as long as you approach them in a professional way, then I think an artist would be like, yeah, I work with this guy and I think he's great, or yeah, I work with this guy and he hasn't done anything for me. Right? But you always want to dig a little bit deeper when you have these questions. Right. So this is in sales, which there's a whole sales thing inside of TASA, but I call these piercing questions. So if you're talking to someone and they say, yeah, I've been a rep with him for like 8 months, or he's been my rep for 8 months and he's done nothing for me. Okay. I wouldn't stop that conversation there. I would be like, okay, well, how have you guys worked together? Like, what does that mean he hasn't done anything for you? Has he asked to learn about your work? Is he knowledgeable about your art? Has he done any events? Has he called anyone in your behalf? Have you given him all the information he needs? Like, how did you guys work together? I wouldn't leave it at topical questions that don't give you complete answers, because a lot of artists half-ass the business side of things, right? No offense to anybody. And if I'm calling you out, then there's something you need to be thinking about. But, you get this person who's like, yeah, I'll represent your work. And then they don't do the three things you need to do if you're working with anyone, right? One is provide them with all the information. Two is follow up with them consistently. Or maybe that's number three. And then number two would be create a strong relationship with that person so that they care about you enough to pick up the phone on your behalf, right? A lot of times we can put in another one, maybe number four, is discover their expectations for how they're going to work. So if the R rep is like, yeah, I do this on the side sometimes, and I I know a bunch of people, and when I do events, I talk about my artists, right? So this person isn't consistently trying to sell for you. So having the right expectations for the art rep and how you're going to work together is really, really important, right? So these still questions still apply. Does the art rep uh, show art like yours? Does the art rep show artists like you? Um, and is the art that they are selling priced in your range? So it's the same process for the art rep. Just kind of understand that you need to make sure that they're going to be on board with you. Right? That's it for today. That's actually like a half hour on the dot because I didn't start talking about this till like 10 after. So let me go back. You guys have any questions or did you find this valuable? And then Jessica says, please call me out. So let me know if you found this valuable at all. And then if you have any questions, we'll hang out for a few more minutes and chat about it. This is exactly why I'm going. Wow, want to see the prices. Um, right. Um, okay, so if you're an Artpreneur member, you can find this replay in the replay vault here in like the next hour with the document there. If you want the document DM'd to you, just please say, hey, can you send me the companion doc in the chat? So, okay, so you have a gallery to go see on the 15th. That's cool. Yeah, gotta reassess. And sometimes the galleries just need a kick. They're like, hey, I want you to do this stuff for me. Like, I want to get more sales. Like, what are you guys doing? Where's your email list? If sometimes you might have to, like, I've offered to write the emails on their behalf. It's like, hey, you have an email list. Let me write an introduction about me and my work for you guys. You can improve it and then you can send it out. And make sure you're on their email list. If you're not on their email list, then you can't verify whether or not they are sending those messages. So, you can't check their work. Harvey says, I also want to see if they're hiring. You can't walk into a gallery and say, hey, will you show me my work? And then after you're done asking them to look at your work, ask them for a job too. Right? It's one or the other. And then, yeah, if you have questions about the Artpreneur program, which again is $25 a month to get access to all of the training, including these replays, then comment art me in the comments and we'll get to it. We'll get you hooked up. Yeah, Lori, that's just kind of confusing messaging because imagine being a business owner and you're like, someone comes in and is like, hey, I want to pitch you my products. And then at the end of their pitch, they're like, oh, are you hiring? It's like, well, if you want me to represent your products, but then you're gonna just turn around and tell me that your products aren't earning enough for you to make money, then that's just not gonna it's not gonna leave a good impression. How about galleries that hold annual calls and then show work of selected art? So like the gallery holds its own art fair. That's cool. You show up for the art fair. You know, the one thing we didn't talk about was what is it called? Exclusive and non-exclusive showing rights and things like that. So if they're gonna hold an annual call and have non-exclusive rights or sales rights for your work, then that's cool. About I don't think there's much to talk about. All right, I'll give it a few more minutes for sales or questions. I know there's a little bit of a lag for people. Rolling back. Doug says he's gonna see me soon. I don't know what that means. A little creepy. Um, Please call me out. Okay. How many times did I say this time? All right, so I think that's about it for today. Again, I hope it was helpful, and we will see you on Thursday again for the next coaching over coffee. Not sure what it's going to be on. We might do a poll to see what you guys want to learn about. All right. Cheers. Cheers. Did Rose, this is the replay, Rose. So like you can just come back to the same video and watch it again. Sorry, I thought that was a funny comment. All right, bye guys.